The Beast Man.
Greetings fanboys and fangirls, Jared here with another video from Fanboys Forever. Today we're going to be having a look at the brand new Masters of the Universe Masterverse 1987 movie Beast Man. Here's a figure that I really didn't think would ever get made. I was completely shocked to see Mattel announce it, and especially to see how cool it looked. Of course, we're here today to look at the final production figure to see if it matched my hype and excitement for the initial images shown. But before we begin, be sure that if you haven't already, that you go ahead and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of our Masters content. And of course, hit that like button if you like today's video, because that really does help me and my family out. All that out of the way, let's begin. So I'm definitely going to gush over the packaging a little bit more than I usually would, because this has some of my favorite art that I've seen on a package so far in this line. For one thing, it's loaded with some things that really excite me. You can see this incredible painting of movie Beast Man. I really like how you can see right here where we have Man-at-Arms. So I'm really looking forward to the movie Man-at-Arms that they will hopefully come out with. On the side, there's even better artwork, I think, of Beast Man up here because it's very indicative of what we actually saw in the film. On the other side, if you look closely, you can actually see Blade, who was announced at San Diego Comic-Con. Here is the UPC number, but I don't think this guy's at retail. I think he's an online exclusive, just like Evil Lyn. And on the back, we have some nice photography of the figure. And down here, we have a very short bio. Beastman is a savage henchman. He is known as a savage mercenary and Skeletor's finest warrior. The snarling Beastman travels to Earth in search of the cosmic key. Alright, let's go ahead and get him out of the box. Alright, and here we have 1987 movie Beastman fresh out of the packaging. So before I start to kind of go over the figure itself, I do want to take a moment to discuss just how cool having the whole smear of 1987 named movie villains from the film actually is to me. It's something that I really never thought would happen, and it's incredible now to see them all together. Of course, they're not all from the Masterverse line. You can see back here that we have characters like Sarad over here, and that's still from the old Super 7 Classics releases, and Karg up here, same deal. And Blade, who is going to get a Masterverse release, and we'll just have to see if that matches up or surpasses or is a downgrade to this original Classics version. Of course, up here you can see Evil Lyn and Skeletor from the Masterverse line. But now really all we need are a bunch of army builders of Skeletor's kind of dark troopers, and then we're going to be ready to go. So that's pretty exciting. I guess Pig Boy, Pig Man, whatever you want to call him, Pighead. I guess that could count as one of the evil warriors, and that would be fun to see. And of course, that was the kid who'd won the contest to be in the Masters movie, and he made an appearance in Masters Universe Revelation. I believe Kevin Smith voiced him. So if you want to get technical, I guess that would be one of the villains. And don't forget Kevin and Julie and Lubick. We need all of these figures somehow. I don't know how they'll get them to us, but we need them. So let's go ahead and just talk about the aesthetic of Beastman here, because if you're not familiar with the movie, then you're probably thinking, huh? When you look at this and say, is this really supposed to be Beastman? Well, just to refresh our memories about what Beastman, typically looks like, the Masterverse figure from the new Eternia version is definitely a good indicator of what we would see as our kind of traditional Beastman. This definitely takes a page out of, kind of revisionist territory and does kind of its own thing, like a lot of the elements in the 1987 Masters Universe movie does. But I definitely think that is a strength of the film. At the time, of course, when the movie came out, I think that it really did hurt fans that they hadn't done what I would say would be a Filmation adaptation. And I've talked to people I know who says that when that movie came out that it was a betrayal, it really hurt. But then you add time to something like this. And I think over the years, you kind of warm to some of these original characters, even some of the revisionist takes on familiar characters. Beastman was one of the familiar anchor characters that was in the film, and it's funny, he has the honor of being the only other evil warrior besides Skeletor and Evil Lyn to survive in the adaptation, to actually make it. So I think that that does give him special status. What's interesting, though, is that a lot of people have compared this design to the Fourth World Jack Kirby character of Calabac, which is one of Darkseid's sons. And I definitely see that. Now, although I've heard Gary Goddard, the director, and other people say that they weren't directly influenced by the Fourth World stuff, they did say that, you know, it might have been a subconscious thing to kind of follow some of that Jack Kirby aesthetic. A lot of people have said that the 1987 Masters of the Universe film is kind of like Jack Kirby the movie if they'd done it in the 80s. And you know what? I really like that. I've always subscribed to that, even if it maybe wasn't necessarily exactly what they were trying to do. Before I go off on a tangent about the movie, that's for another video. If you would like to see a video about that, let me know, because I'm dying to discuss the film and my unique take on it. I definitely want to talk about Beastman here and the design that he brings to the table and what makes him special. First of all, it's been something that I think the fandom have discussed for quite a few years now, that not only does he remind us of Calabac a little bit from the Jack Kirby Fourth World stuff from DC Comics, but he also looks a fair bit more like Grizzlor than he does Beastman. And I think that the reason that that comes about is because, you know, he's very shaggy. He has all this brown hair everywhere, whereas Beastman was always, it was a little more contained than this. And this big mane of hair that's everywhere, I think that that's much more Grizzlor from the Evil Horde. So I definitely see what people are talking about. He does kind of give you the idea of, like, you know, Sasquatch or something like that, or a Bigfoot type of character. It looks like the $6 Million Man is about to face him down, or the G.I. Joe adventure team is going to track him down in the woods or something. He gives those vibes. Or Big Jim's going to come after him if you want to get into Mattel territory. But I like that. I think it's cool. It's almost like they're saying, hey, this is what Beastman really looks like, and here is the, you know, kind of silly cartoon version that you stupid kids have been watching at home. That may be a little harsh. Karg passed out in the background. He could not stand that. But yeah, I do think that there's some legitimacy to this design. For one thing, I think it's really cool that he has this kind of vest right here, which aesthetically does line up with things that you'll see about Skeletor's costume with all these little plates. That was something that the costume designers, I think, really liked. And they tried to incorporate it into a couple of the characters' designs, and I like it too. Down here on, like, the thigh armor, you can definitely see some more of that kind of work. And then the plating kind of theme goes down to his leather leg coverings, which I think are really fascinating. It's not something that I would have anticipated seeing on a design for Beastman. I love the boots. You can see that they have the fur just kind of erupting from seams in the boots. On the back, you can see that, yes, if you work at it, you could probably take the leather coverings off, although it would look kind of funny because they're kind of wedged in there, and I think that if you did manage to get it off, you would have to actually remove the leg. So I don't really think they're intended to come off at all. I also think it's interesting that he does indeed kind of have the furry underwear that is accurate to Beastman. And it's kind of the turquoise blue a little bit. In Filmation, it was more just straight up blue. I think that that's cool that's in there. He also has some ornamentation, some little, like, trinkets hanging from a belt that is actually covered by an overhang of fur. You can actually see back here that the plating continues from the back. Once again, we have all that fur overhang, bandages everywhere, and then these awesome samurai-like shoulder pads where you can see the suggestion of chainmail. There's these cool, almost turtle shell-like kind of shoulder pads, and the kind of spikes that are coming out of them, which is very true to Beastman's original design with the kind of things that he has on his arms. And then I really like these gauntlets down here, which came off of the figure in the packaging, and then you just put them on. So these are kind of optional. I like them because they give him some extra ornamentation. So I think this is all really cool. Interestingly, you can, and it does appear to very much be intended and maybe even encouraged, you can take these off, no problem. And you can see that once I do that and then pop the head off, you can get a pretty cool kind of furry chest version of the character here without the armor. I think that that looks pretty decent, actually. It definitely looks like what you might expect if the character wasn't wearing that armor in the movie. Beyond that, that pretty much covers most of the costume. I do want to mention this fur that's kind of, once again, overhanging, leaking out of the shoulder pads. They've done a great job of suggesting that fur all throughout the figure so that he doesn't look so tame. Honestly, this figure has an uphill battle because they're not using any kind of soft goods fur or anything like that or any flocking. They have to suggest the fur just with sculpting. And that's tough because the actual character and the costume in the movie has so much wild fur everywhere. That was always going to be a challenge. But you know what? I think they've done a pretty good job. Had this been a higher budgeted line, you know, you could go a little bit further, you could do more with it. But I think for the price and what this is, I think it's completely adequate for what they were trying to do. Let's talk about the head sculpt a little bit. Certainly that's something that I like to give a little bit of extra attention to. I think that this mostly captures the character in the movie pretty well. It captures the mask and appliance that the actor was wearing. You can see the suggestion of the pointy ears coming out of the sides there. I like how he has like a little Superman-esque curl there. I really like his little ponytail at the top there. It's kind of samurai-esque, like a lot of the armor, honestly. And I like that they have sort of a wash going, and I think it's a very subtle wash. The paint masking on the face, they do a great job of getting into the little grooves on the sculpt and really kind of giving it that extra bit of detail. Even the teeth have a very subtle, nice wash where they're gritted, they're kind of yellowed, gnarled, and the eyes are really nice too. If I had any kind of complaint about the figure, I would say maybe Beastman's a little too handsome. He's definitely putting his best foot forward here. He almost looks a little noble. I would say that possibly the way to remedy this would have been him having a more fearsome expression on his face with the mouth actually open. Even though this is plenty fearsome enough, I'm just saying if they wanted to emphasize the ugliness of the character a little bit more. But honestly, that is a very small nitpick. They've really done a very good job here coming up with a Beastman head sculpt that I think is pretty true to the character in the film. I always say this, I'm a broken record. I'm one of these people that's always like, hey, add more wash, you know, that'll fix everything. But yeah, I think you could add some black wash into all of this and bring out quite a bit more of the detail, even though I think they've done a splendid job of definitely doing some very subtle paint things here and there. I feel like it's like one paint application away from being a premium paint job, like completely premium. But this is a great example of the height you can reach with mass market kind of toys, even though this is like an online exclusive thing. Definitely though, it's still in the mold of a mass market kind of company, kind of punching above their weight. And so I do appreciate it, and I think it's awesome. I think the place where the lack of paint hurts the most are actually the hands. And you can see that they're just a very basic kind of flesh tone. Yeah, that hurts a lot. I'm glad that it was just the hands. I completely plan on going in and putting a little wash on these hands to at least make them a little darker. They definitely don't match the good wash work and paint masking they did on the face. But honestly, I'm glad it was just there. That's probably one of the least noticeable spots. Definitely the sword here is very nice. The truth is, this is one of those things, the movie, this is one of those props I never really got a good look at. Clearly Mattel definitely sourced out a lot of this stuff and got good reference material, because I feel like this is very nice looking, and I especially like the little techie details down there. And I like the kind of dual molding of the plastics here. Now what's really cool is they've added this little detail, which looks like some kind of tamper graphic that they've imprinted onto the sword. I think that's awesome. I never noticed it in the movie. I'm going to assume it's definitely there if they went to the trouble of doing it. I don't know what the symbol means, but really in the film, you have Skeletor kind of hiring out, it almost feels like, 4 mercenaries for his evil warriors.
A curious quartet.
And I think they were kind of doing an Empire Strikes Back type of deal where Darth Vader talks to the bounty hunters. That's how it feels in the movie, only it's like Darth Vader hires a group to work together. So that's what it feels like with Blade and Sarad and Karg and Beastman. So it definitely kind of bucks the trend that we saw in the cartoon and in the mini comics. Now, speaking of that sword, it does have a scabbard for it right here on the side, and I think it works beautifully. You just put the sword in there. It's the perfect size where it's not going to go anywhere, and it looks really nice just to the side. So I think that that works as well. Now, I will say that when it comes to posing, that means a lot with this figure. Probably a good time to talk about the articulation on this guy. Let's talk about what he can and cannot do. For one thing, with the head, it's on a pretty generous ball joint, and they've left enough of a gap to where you can do plenty with it. So you can definitely get it about this far left and right before it's stopped by some of the armor, and he can go up and down pretty good. It's not great because of the beard and things, but you know, I think it works. It's probably as much as you ever see him do in the film without resorting to kind of soft goods fur, and it's a lot more mobile than I thought it would be. With the arms, of course, you're going to get more articulation if you take off the vest, but who's going to have, you know, this beast man without the vest? However, look at this. This completely gets out of the way. It's soft enough, and it behaves exactly like the real shoulder pads would have, and you can get way above 90. As a matter of fact, this actually doesn't confine it at all like this. You can hug them down pretty close to the body. You can bring it up, and once again, hey, this gets completely out of the way. I take back what I said. That doesn't limit it at all. You do have a rotation at the elbow. It is a single joint, but it's a really good single joint, and so you can get just a little over 90 degrees. There is hinges in all of the alternate hands that it comes with, so that works. There is also on the chest a complete diaphragm joint, and it's hidden so well by this front armor. So you can, you know, crunch him pretty far down like this, and remember, you want to bring the head up so you still have that kind of hunched over look, and you can get it kind of far back. So that works as well. You can, of course, rotate that, and you can rotate at the waist. Down here at the legs, you do get drop-down hips, which is something that the Masterverse figures are completely dedicated to giving us. So you can drop them way down, and it does create kind of an unseemly gap, unfortunately, right there. But that's just kind of the way it was designed. They probably could have done a better job hiding it had they extended the kind of blue furry underwear down a little bit and have it do kind of an overhang. But I feel like this ornamentation does a pretty good job of hiding it. You can bring it down like this, and that means that you get much, much better kicks, and that's the magic of those drop-down hips. You can also get some insane kind of splits, things Beastman couldn't do in the movie. Of course, you have this cut here at the upper thigh. You do have a double-jointed knee, which works out really well. And you do have a rotation right here at the boot. You do have a pretty good ankle hinge, and you get ankle rocker pivot. So if you really want him to go wide, 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 way wider than he could in the movie, you can do that. And it works pretty well. Yeah, it didn't take me long to get a pretty satisfactory pose. I think the one problem becomes that because these leather guards don't bend down with the knees, it ends up looking weird when you bend the knees. So that's kind of unfortunate. You end up kind of having like these big slabs of leather, when really, if you wanted it to look natural, they would have to kind of go with the knees. I'm not sure how they could have solved that, but it is a little strange. Okay, we'll definitely do some comparisons with this guy. For one thing, we definitely want to put him with all of the evil warriors that we have so far, or evil bounty hunters. I'm not really sure what the intention is in the movie. And here they are, the entire team of evil warriors from the film.
A curious quartet.
So I think this is a very exciting lineup. It's so cool to have them together after all these years. It's kind of like Skeletor says in the movie, everything comes to he who waits, and I have waited so very long for this moment. So it is so cool to see these guys together. True blessing from Mattel that they have done this and found a way to kind of complete out this team. Now, the good part is this. Let's say that, you know, you don't have this guy, and this guy. So you don't have Blade and Karg and Sarad, because these are Mattel Super 7 figures, and with Blade, he was actually just a regular Mattel Classics release. Well, that's okay, because they have a new Blade coming out. I am confident that they are going to get around to doing their own versions of these two guys. I am curious, because I'm not sure how much they can really improve on these guys. I'll be very curious to see what they do. I definitely think they could improve on some of the proportions on Karg, who's a little muscly, but I don't know. I'm going to see. I'm definitely going to see. I'm going to keep an open mind, because so far they've done a good job, and I hope to see them continue. And there's no reason not to complete out these movie guys as long as they continue to sell. If you want some other comparisons, here we have Gwildor. He's right behind me, isn't he? And here we have Gwildor from the Masterverse line. Of course, though, this is in the animated style, so I think that's kind of fun. And if you want to have some other fun, Here he is. This is the Ramen Toys head on the Masterverse He-Man body. And you can see that if you want to, you can bring in the Super 7 He-Man. And once again, I'm using the other Ramen Toys head. And yeah, I've completely replaced out my He-Man movie heads with those Ramen Toys ones. In terms of height comparison, Beastman does a good job. I do have him hunched over a little bit, but I do think that's accurate to the film. He's pretty much the exact height he needs to be. He-Man here, who is slightly hunched as well, pretty much goes eye to eye with him. So that's no problem. I feel like that's right on. Of course, obviously, Skeletor is up on a step up there. I don't think I need to say that, but who knows. If you never cared for this He-Man and you retain your Super 7 one from the Classics days, this is going to work as well. That's the beauty about these new movie figures that they're doing. You can definitely just blend them with your previous Super 7 collection. It's not going to be a problem because they all scale exactly the same pretty much. So this Beastman is available on Big Bad Toy Store. Of course, this isn't a sponsored video or anything like that. I always buy these figures with my own money. It's very hard for me to really level hardly any criticisms at this figure, and I'm going to be upfront about that because I'm just so wildly appreciative that it even happened. Unfortunately, we stay pretty jaded in the action figure fandom, especially in the MOTU fandom. I've seen people complain in the last week about things that really have brought back a lot of bad memories from places like He-Man.org, which, even though it had a ton of lovely people on it, was often dominated by naysayers and nuts who were always unyieldingly negative about every single thing in the MOTU fandom, and it was so tiresome. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of that rear its ugly head in the last week, and honestly, with this Beastman, it's far above any of that negativity, because keep in mind, we're getting a side character in a 1987 movie version of He-Man, and we're getting it in action figure form in 2024. I mean, this is incredible, and I'm so happy that we live in a time when we can see things like this created. You may be looking at the first and last figural representation of Beastman from the 1987 Masters movie. This could be it. And if it is, then great. This is definitely worthy of that film and the many, many, many folks who do love it and have a soft spot for that movie, including me. Of course, let me know your thoughts down below. Are you one of those big fans of the movie like I am, and you'll just eat up any of these releases as they come out? Are you someone who really can't stand the movie, but you do have a soft spot for some of the character designs? Maybe you think this figure did a great job. Maybe you hate the figure. I would love to hear your opinions down below. And quick little update about my last video about Skeletor's Havoc Throne or Bone Throne. Big Bad Toy Store did get back up with me, and if you haven't watched that video, I did have a quality problem. They are going to allow me to just return that and get a new one in its place. But maybe the bigger headline is that I goofed up on the price in the video. I said over and over again that it was $59.99, and I thought that that was too much. Well, joke's on me, it was $69.99, so it was really too much. So unfortunately, that was a case of kind of an overpriced item in the line. However, Beastman here is worth every bit of $29.99. Is that how much he is?
$23.99.
I should have known it all along.
Anyway, though, can't wait to put out more videos and see what you guys think. And of course, I love hearing from you. And if you haven't yet, be sure to like the video because that really helps me out. Hit the subscribe button because that really helps the channel out. If you're feeling really generous, there's always the thanks button. And as always, God bless you and yours. And I'll see you on Fanboys Forever. Fanboy out.
The Beastman.
I want him back.
I should have known